Hi guys, so on the anniversary of Brexit, Reform UK friendly GB News visited a number of towns that overwhelmingly backed Leave to ask people living there what they think 5 years after the UK began the process of exiting the EU. One of their reporters was in North Shields, where she spoke to a fisherman who voted for Brexit. Try as she might to extract something positive out of the affair, the voter had nothing but regret, it seems. If GB News struggled to find somebody with something positive to say about Brexit, then that must be a clear sign of how bad things are. Have a listen.
Well, surely Brexit has been a good thing, though. I mean, people are saying that things are digitised now, you're going to be saving money, you can charge out you like, really, because you're exporting. Has it been good or bad?
It's been bad, the exact opposite. It hasn't worked out as the government promised anyhow. Locally here in North Shields, which all I can speak about, it's been a bit of a disaster.
In what way?
In the main, legislation, red tape, documentation is just 100-fold of what it used to be, and this is purely when you're exporting product. The North Shields fleet here target langoustines in the main. The market for your langoustine is France, Spain, Italy in the main. There are other markets, but the best price is there. From the moment Brexit happened, for 3 or 4 months, we couldn't literally send anything. You're dealing with a product that has a 4 or 5 day shelf life. Once we managed to go, I think it was April of the same year, so 4 months later, the costs that hit us then still remain now. This is ultimately costing the fishing fleet somewhere between 30 and 50 pence for every single kilo of prawns, langoustines landed today.
But what about we can keep our own fish, surely? Then we don't have the EU sort of fishing in our waters.
It hasn't affected us here locally. I believe other parts of the UK have been affected or possibly benefit now. We don't get a visiting fleet of European vessels here. We used to see a couple of Dutch vessels. They no longer come even now. So we don't have any visiting fleet from mainland Europe into North Shields locally. So that hasn't affected us at all.
But can't you charge them more though for exporting? If you're exporting something, you're no longer bound by the shackles of the EU pricing structure. Can't you just charge them more money?
No, ultimately not, because they can also buy the same product from within the EU. So the Dutch fleet, the Danish fleet, the French fleet, they all catch langoustine. So they have a head start on the UK market. We believe in the UK that the langoustine here is the best. It's the sweetest flavoured. But we're not only talking about langoustine here. There's crab and there's lobster and all these things where the markets are best in mainland Europe, where we need to go for price. It's costing us daily. It's costing the fishermen daily.
Did you vote to leave or remain?
I was a Brexiteer, and I voted mainly because of the red tape surrounding the UK industry in North Shields in particular. If you phoned the authorities in the past prior to Brexit, it was all Brussels got the blame for everything, or nobody could answer a question, whether it was on a fish size, a mesh size, a gear, anything. Legislation, it was Brussels, Brussels, Brussels. That was my main thought, that we move away from Europe, we can decide and set our own destiny. And nothing's changed on the legislative side, and we're just being affected by cost.
It's interesting how the reporter here was attempting to extract something positive from Brexit and she got nothing in return. The opposite, just it's worse. Now, should we have sympathy for this fisherman? He was convinced by charlatans, let's call them charlatans because that's what they are, that if he voted to leave the European Union, it would remove all of the bureaucracy. It's an interesting take that he had. He would call up government authorities, government agencies and say, look, we have these problems. And the response from them was, well, it's not our fault, it's Brussels. It's not our fault, it's the EU. So he was in a position where somebody like Nigel Farage or Boris Johnson or maybe even Jacob Rees-Mogg could come to his town and explain to him, lying of course, that if he voted to leave, it would remove all of these problems. Now, should we have sympathy for that with that position? Because I don't know if we can. Because if you're going to make a decision that's going to impact your livelihood, going to impact your tradition, impact your community, impact your sector, your industry, then surely you should stop listening to politicians, stop listening to people who have a proven track record of lying, and instead listen to experts, people who have a reputation to lose if they're wrong. We know that Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg didn't have a reputation to lose because they had been proven to have lied and lied and lied and got away with it. So when somebody like Boris Johnson or Jacob Rees-Mogg or Nigel Farage arrives in your town and says, "Don't worry, everything will be okay," what you need to do, doesn't matter if it's about Brexit or anything, you need to take a step back and say, okay, is there somebody else disagreeing with this position? And what would be their motivation to disagree? Do they have a reputation to lose? Is there a problem with listening to them as opposed to listening to Nigel Farage? And unfortunately, like when it came to farming, not every farmer and not every fisherman, but a lot of them decided to ignore the experts and instead listen to the words of Farage, Johnson and Mogg. And now they're paying the consequences. Because before the UK left the European Union, it was a simple case of packaging something, sticking a label on it and sending it off to the market that he was describing here, France, Spain and Italy. And it would arrive maybe even in the same day. Now, it takes much longer, it requires more bureaucracy, and of course, a higher cost. And he's competing on an unlevel playing field. As he has pointed out here, it's costing more for him to ship the same product, and markets, the consumers in those markets can look at the British product, which costs, as he said here, maybe 30p or 50p more than the product found sold by a supplier in the European Union. And if it's just an issue of cost, then which are they going to choose? Now, it doesn't mean that all fishing has completely collapsed in the UK and the sales going into the European Union, but it's been deeply damaged. Once again, the reporter here can come up with nothing. She's struggling to come up with some sort of positivity here, but there's nothing. It's more difficult for the fishing sector to sell in. If they want to increase the price, as she's thinking, well, it's just going to price them out of that market. So there's nothing. And we haven't even touched on the other aspects to the fishing sector. For example, getting access to the workers they need in the processing of fish, the packaging, the factory side, where the fish are collected, caught, and then they're brought to a processing centre. And those processing centres are also struggling to get the workers they need as a result of the UK leaving the European Union and ending freedom of movement. None of this is good. You have people, politicians generally, celebrating 5 years of Brexit, but they're not coming up with any real tangible benefits. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.